you guys. I'm so excited. All right, let's get right into this thing. Woo!
It's time for another On the Spot. On the Spot.
Who has been your biggest rival during your time in the series? Who gave you the most trouble every time you raced near them competitively or otherwise?
Oh my God, that's a tough one to answer. I race against so many great drivers, some of them are still racing today. Like Helio. Helio was my teammate, just won today. He was one of my great rivals.
Look, because I've been in this sport for a long time, it's difficult to create sort of a rivalry, negative way, right? I've been with teammates, many drivers in different teams now, and I know them. So everyone has your personality. You just need to learn how to deal with it.
Rivals for me, man, there's too many of them. They're all good. Dixon, as far as the championships, he's just a chip away sort of guy.
I know Will Power and I have had some battles with championship fights, and the same with him and Dario Franchitti. I'd probably say it never got into full-on punch-ups like maybe they used to in the old days. But it has definitely been some heated moments. So rivalries are still strong, and I think it's an important part of the sport.
There are guys that are very close, but yet they still want to beat each other. That's going to be, and internally they feel a great rivalry between each other. I'll bet you. That's part of the game. I mean, it just is. It's part of the whole deal. So we may all be kosher and friendly in front of each other, and we may all get along. It doesn't doesn't mean you hate somebody, right? But it means on track that it's somebody.
A friendly rivalry.
Yeah, it's somebody that you want to beat more than maybe anybody else.
My biggest rival, that's a good question. I mean, you look at 2018 and it was Scott. 2019 was kind of Scott as well. Probably the most consistent guy that I've had wheel-to-wheel stuff with and races against and have made strategy decisions based on what they're doing. It's probably Scott, number one, Joseph, number two.
Right now, it's great to have my former teammate, which is now a teammate, Simon Pagenaud, beside me, because we really work well together. But I can't wait to be battling wheels with Will again, with Joseph, with Dixon, and like my partners or competitors that I had before, because it would be a lot of fun.
Some might say, Power. Others might say Rossi. What do you think, though?
That's a good point. It started with Power, and now we're teammates, so it's a little bit different. But Rossi's become a driver I love to race against because it's always super clean but hard. And I respect him a lot as a driver. Definitely there's a rivalry there, but it's not a bad rivalry in terms of, it's just, I admire some of the stuff he can do that I feel like I can't do. Like, we have a different talent, and there are things I'm sure he admires about me that he wishes he could do. I don't know, but that's how I feel, and I admire his car control is pretty amazing.
Simon and I obviously had a great race at the 500, but we don't really race together a whole lot. We're never really on the same part of the track. So I would say the guys I'm around the most are probably Scott, Joseph, Will,
Tony, Scott, Dixon, Dario, Juan Montoya. I mean, they're in the list. I hate doing those lists because I always forget someone. Paul Tracy,
You had PT and Bourdais going at it all the time. You had many other guys. I think PT had rivals with every single person on track. But that was kind of part of the game.
Yeah, for sure it's Paul. I really haven't had any... I didn't have a good relationship with Aloshin, that's for sure. But it didn't last anywhere near as long, and it wasn't as repetitive as Paul. So, I think, Paul expressed it pretty well. It was just kind of trying to get to my head and shake things out and rattle the cage a little bit. That didn't really particularly work, but it definitely made things a bit less enjoyable than one could have hoped for. But, that was his playbook, and we definitely settled the score and put that behind us. And it was just it's just a bit of a different time, I guess.
You're all friendly now.
Yeah, I mean, he's come clean about it. Like, he just says, well, that was just my way of trying to get to you, and work more or less, but not really the way he was expecting. And I think we had some really good racing, and then sometimes not really good at all. So it's just the way it was.
Kenny Brack. I mean, there's Michael Andretti. There's Jimmy Vasser, Alex Zanardi.
I mean, there has been like some pretty major rivalries, and one of them in the 90s was with my dad and Zanardi.
Colton likes to think it was Alex Zanardi, but what do you say?
Yeah, well, I mean, because of the past at Laguna, I think Alex was a big one. I don't know. I didn't really feel a rivalry per se very much out there because the level of competition was so high. You'd say everybody. You were trying to beat everybody every week, and there wasn't anybody you could discount. So, for me, it was just who you were racing that week.
I forgot one more, Adrian Fernandez. He was very good. Mexican driver. Unbelievable.
That's a lot of names.
Yeah, it's a lot of good drivers. Like today, there's a lot of great quality drivers.
Right, I think it's more important just to compete with everyone on track in the same way. Obviously, when it comes down to a points position and there's someone specific you want to beat, I think that's a different that's a different situation.
I don't have one person that I'm in the past. Like at one point, it was Will when we were going up against each other in championships, and then. I can't really say I have one.
Then you get some of these young guys that are so fast, like Pagenaud and Colton.
No rivalries, to be honest. I'm really good friends with Pagenaud and Colton. And Oliver last year, we're all really close. I wouldn't say there's any rivalries. We just want to see each other do good because we're part of the same generation.
I think in my whole life, it's been Joseph, because Joseph and I raced against each other every year of our lives. And, I would win the go-kart championship, then he won it. And then I won the Skip Barber championship, he finished second. Like, we kept winning these things as we kept coming up. And he was always the guy that I wanted to beat. We were teammates in Indy Lights for, the 5 races that I did. He won the first race, I won the 3rd race. And, we were all just, we were just going back and forth. And any time, when we both got the poles last year at Iowa, I just kind of looked at him. I was like, well, this makes sense. Like, this is hilarious. So I think I take most satisfaction out of beating Joseph, because I think he has done an incredible job at being one of the best of the best. And if you're beating Joseph, you're probably at the front and you're doing a good job. So that's probably the guy that I, also a very good friend of mine, but I also respect him the most on the track, and he's the guy that I want to beat the most.
I always want to be the top American. So, Joseph, want to beat him. Alex, want to beat him. Colton's coming into that fray. But Colton I look at differently, because I've literally known Colton since he was my daughter's age, which is weird to think about, but it's true. And so for me, to see him, coming up and being successful, certainly like to beat him, but it's a little different than some of the other boys.
Your biggest rival always has to be your teammates, because they're just the first people you have to beat, right? So it's not that I dislike them or I'm ever angry at them. I mean, I'm some angry at them sometimes. Let's call a spade a spade. But when you get in the car, when you come in after a run, you look at the timing sheet, and the first things you're comparing against are your teammates. If you're not first, you're like, okay, are any of my teammates ahead of me? All right, if they're ahead of me, why? Because you can see that data, you know what's on their car, you can figure that out, so that helps you, right? So I think whenever you're on track, your immediate competition is your teammates, and then you got to beat them first, and then you got to beat everybody else. Yeah.
Definitely the Rahals and Andrettis are pretty thick. For me, that was always, that always has been the Andrettis and the Rahals. That lives on, I mean, it did, flat out. We always wanted to beat them, but that also lives on with the teams. The Rahal, RLL wants to beat the Andretti team all the time. There's a lot of motivation that goes in behind that, and I guarantee vice versa. In fact, I know vice versa. So, at least from an ownership perspective, and so, that those sorts of rivalries do live on.
Well, I think my rivalry with the Andretti family was pretty well known. It's really that was the real rivalry. Although I really enjoyed competing against Rick Mears and Al Unser Jr. and Al Sr. and Gordon Johncock and people like that. But the real rivalry to me was me against the Andrettis, and it was. If you look back, The guy who finished second in all my championships is Michael.
You know, my dad and Michael had quite a rivalry for many years. Anytime my dad won the championship, Michael finished second. When Michael won his one championship, Dad finished second. So, you know, those two were going at it for years and years. So to me, you know, I certainly think that that's probably one of the healthiest rivalries ever.
But I do want to say that I had the greatest respect for Michael, and I had tremendous respect for Mario. So, but I just always considered them kind of the guys to beat.
The guy I've competed with the longest, that when I can beat him, there's great satisfaction, is Simon, because I respect him tremendously. You know, I've raced against Simon, and, you know, from Formula Atlantic, Champ Car, first years together, you know, kind of worked our way up here to, he's obviously at Penske and had a great career, won the Indy 500, won a championship. I've not had that success, but he's the guy that when I race, we know it's going to be fair, but that's a great rivalry, you know, internally.
I would probably say Al Jr. because we came up together and we both had very similar path and, you know, similar pressures and all that, but I gotta say it was a friendly rivalry. I think, you know, we both had a lot of respect for each other. I enjoyed racing Al a lot. He was really tough to race against, but he was really fair and clean, and we had a lot of fun together. And so, yeah, I think he would be the guy I would pick.
There's always, you know, some words here or there from either side, but, you know, at the end of the day, there's always that respect, and I think that's what you always get with rivalries. You have that want and that need to beat the other guy, but it's a healthy rivalry in some ways, and then you get to the end of it, shake hands and move on.
All right, and that is it here. I hope you guys enjoyed. I had a great time in the pit, in the garage, all that fun stuff. See you guys in the next one. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. Later!